And I saw a video within the past couple of days of some of the refugees that are coming in, and they're all, military age men. I didn't see very many families. I didn't
Hmm.
see very many little children. I mean, hey, there are a lot of great things about America that's far better than the rest of the world, but you need to come in the right way, and we should be concerned about you know hundreds, if not thousands. I don't know the numbers. I just saw a few videos of military age men that were healthy, well fed, and coming into our country. That could very well be a dangerous thing.
Well, it could be at a minimum, even if it's not a dangerous thing. It's clearly the priorities have been set by somebody in power to say, hey, we're putting the needs of these people over the needs of our own people. So let's call that the America last position, right? And so now I'm reading about, oh, the government might shut down, but don't worry, the pensions and payments of people in Ukraine, those will continue even during a government shutdown. Not the ones in America, right? So again, America last, right? So that's the vibe I think people are starting to rightly get a little annoyed with. And it's bizarre to see it in an election cycle because usually they pretend to put America first and they're not. They're not. So that's the part of the gloves have come off and they've just said, America last. We don't give a, we care about anything
Right.
above and beyond you, the Americans. Let's just start there.
Well, it's like a family where you've got a narcissistic parent that puts on a plastic face for the entire community, and the community doesn't realize just how horrible the home life is for that family. But
Mm-hmm.
the kids understand fully, that it's complete and utter chaos at home with a plastic face outside. And I think the American people are starting to wake up to this. I mean, you hear with some of the rumblings that are taking place with the mayor in New York and his conversations and warnings about what the immigration into their city is doing and is going to do. People are waking up slowly, but I think they're waking up much quicker than what the those in the White House believe they are. At least I hope they are, Chris. I really hope they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, you and me both. So this is going to have huge market impact. So we're here to talk all things markets. So let's go there. This is Finance University. Um so many things to talk about. Can I just let me just turn a couple slides real quick because you know me. I like
I'll
slides.
follow your lead, Chris.
So let me just turn here. Let me know if you can't see this. But this is
I
I'll
can see
supersize this. Let me supersize this. Is that still showing up for you as a
it is. I can see it.
creek
Creek.
pop?
I like your
Creek
art.
pop.
That was a very
Yeah.
good, Chris.
Yeah. So I'm seeing the creaking signs and I just want to go through these a little bit in more detail. And by the way, everybody listening, the reason I care about this is that if you at all found it distressing, the 99.95% survival rate, COVID, you're going to find it really awful what's going to happen when the economy really turns. And it's going to turn because there's been this huge, gross, inept mismanagement of it, interventionist mismanagement by the Fed. And I guess, you know what, Paul, I'm going to tell you, I think these people, they're well meaning. I think they go to sleep at night thinking they're good people. And somehow they just, you know how it is, mission creep, right? First they had to bail out the markets once in 1987 and then 1994, then 95, then 98, with long-term capital management. Oops, then 2000, then 2001. Then it's just been a never-ending increasing management since then, right? With higher and higher levels of intervention. Okay, so we have that. So the 10-year yield is throwing off some signals to us right now. Obviously the Fed's raising rates. That all makes sense. But I just wanted to look at this chart here and note a couple of things. Let me see. Get my laser pointer out. So this is what everybody's focused on now, which is this, very, very steep rise from a 0.5%, if you can believe it, to 4.6, right? 4.65. And that's a rate we haven't seen since 2007, 2008-ish. So that's that. But two things to point out. First, this is 1998 coming into 99. This is early 2000. And of course, this is the great crash here of 2001 and 2000, 2001. But the Fed raised rates until they got that popping sound.
Yes.
So I'm convinced they're going to keep raising rates till they get the next popping sound,
Mm.
which and they've told us they're going to do. That's not exactly like rocket wisdom, right? They told us they're gonna do it. So I think they're gonna keep on with that. But the other thing is this period in this orangish circle here, this is coming in through, this is 1999, this whole white band here. 2019, sorry, 2019, coming in here, and the treasuries were actually starting to go down this path. And by the way, this is COVID in here. Not until here, right? 2020.
That's right.
Yes. Sorry, this is 2018 in the white, 2019 in the gray. But it's to say, people, oh, COVID, that's what drove interest rates to 0.5%. But I'm like, no, there was something going on strong in here, starting in 2018 all the way through until this is COVID. COVID isn't until right here. It's that last pop down right from there. All this happened in the absence of COVID.
Yeah, from going back to 2000, late 2019, 18, the Fed, if I remember correctly, started to raise interest rates slightly, just a quarter of a point or two. And then, one of the things that we were looking at economically from a risk management standpoint is we had all kinds of signs late 2019 that we were headed into a recession. And of course, the market started screaming in the face of the COVID concerns. I remember you were warning people and talking about COVID and what was, what was taking place in China at the time. And the markets were, scratching towards all-time highs there before the shutdowns. But the Fed had already started lowering rates, or the market was driving rates lower. So, all the money that was printed during the COVID lockdowns basically papered over what was by all means a coming recession back during that period of time. And that's what concerns me about where we are now. All this money was printed. Everybody thinks it solves the problem. Everything's great. But we have so postponed all of these recessions in the past by this massive stimulus and intervention. At some point, it's going to come roaring back. And yes, the Fed's raised rates, but when I look at the rate of change from 2020 to where we are today, all I can think of is a basketball that was artificially held under the water, and now it's released, right? The market's pushing rates higher right now, stretching up to back to 2007, 2008. We've got a populace that does not respect debt because interest rates have been down for so long. You've got businesses which have been trying to squeeze every ounce of profit out of their business and leveraging and utilizing debt to magnify those profits. And now all of a sudden rates are changing relatively dramatically. I don't think there's many people who are prepared for that or had strategically planned, because, we become complacent. Business owners, individuals come complacent and think that interest rates are going to stay down and inflation will never be a problem, but we can see that it is now.
Yeah, and it's such a great point, because I'm just tracking oil, and there's a really big, giant structural problem in the oil markets. And of course, why wouldn't there be? Somebody decided in their infinite wisdom to come and monkey around with this and just drive prices down in a very price sensitive commodity market where you need producers to have the appropriate price signals, right? And they were being squeezed on one side by prices that were being driven down by oil that had been put in the SPR decades ago, sometimes many decades ago, right? At much lower prices. Doesn't matter. Government's price insensitive. They're just driving it down. But they were also being squeezed by inflation and even shortages. So when I was talking with people, Paul, in the oil field space, 2020, 21, they couldn't get this 2 7/8 inch pipe they needed. When they could, it was wicked expensive because it's a very energy intensive and therefore inflation sensitive business. So they were getting crushed on one end and the other. And now we're over here going, wow, where's all the oil? This is gonna hurt.
Yeah. And for political reasonings, we're 250 million barrels, correct, less in the strategic petroleum reserve, and oil prices are right back to where they were when they started draining the strategic petroleum reserves for political purposes to make things look great.
Yeah, this is the fun part, because remember they said, and all these people, all these Biden supporters, like, oh, he's so smart, or his team is. They're gonna sell high, buy low. So they said, oh, we're gonna buy this back at 72. They said it. They put out a tender. They're like, we're not paying any more than 72 a barrel for this. Well, we're $20 above that. So it's, guess what? Quite predictably, the minute they stopped selling, the price went back the other way.
You're right. Basic supply and demand. But Chris, it really seems like, and my greatest concern is in the halls of power, they're disconnected from reality, from the political pundits to the economists. If you're making the mainstream media in most of those cases, you're connected. You're wanting to please those peers that are around you. You know, they reward groupthink now. They want to be surrounded by like-minded individuals. They're not operating on what we know as individuals. Iron sharpens iron. You know, the Bible can clearly says is something you need to be surrounded by somebody who's going to challenge your opinion, that makes you better. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights. You don't get stronger without enduring some pain. And you have to set your pride down. Yeah, I'm not going to be as strong as the other guy if I'm starting out, but you develop that over time. And the halls of power is groupthink. So I don't think they really understand. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, correct? So yeah, I don't think it's completely evil in their intentions, although the outcome may necessarily be that way. But it's just surrounded by a bunch of individuals. We're the greatest people in the world. Everything's great. The average American, you know, what was it? CNN's talking about the fact the economy's great. Why is the average American complaining about it? Well, of course, if you've got large enough income to absorb all of that inflation, and you're not communicating with the average individual because you're surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, you're completely disconnected from reality. And I think that's the problem that we have going on right now. And that sets up for a very chaotic and dangerous environment over the next couple of years.
Yeah. The way, very well said. The way I'm looking at this is that for too long, this is end of empire kind of stuff. For too long, we've been able to get away with pretending reality doesn't exist. And so the people who are more deal in narratives, they just set the narrative, right? You know, and then they avoid the consequences for that for a long time. So we've been able to overprint, overspend. You know, it's just interesting to me to watch how many people are outraged that Russia did this illegal attack of Ukraine. It was like Iraq, Syria, Libya. Like it's like this glass houses stones kind of a moment for me, you know. But that's okay because only Russia should have to bear the consequences of their actions. We don't, right? And so this groupthink has gone on long enough. I'm not sure they even know right from wrong, up from down anymore. But I'm a huge believer that if you intervene in markets, they're complex systems, and you're going to get these emergent, unintended consequences. And we're going to face that sooner or later, right? That avalanche of US Treasury paper coming back home and interest rates shooting up and everything that's going to cause, or wow, we're actually short of oil. You know, the only way you solve an oil shortage is you crush demand or you make more supply. Those are your two choices, right?
That's correct.
You can crush demand with a recession, or you can do it with really high prices and a recession, your choice. But we're going to face that because we just didn't let the oil markets sort themselves out.
That's right.
Which they would have done.
They would have done, and the market would have found the most efficient solution. You know, and my biggest concern is we have supply issues with oil demand going forward. The demand is far greater than what the supply issues are going to be. That it didn't have to be that way if the government had stayed out of the market and let it work itself out in the most efficient manner. We've got deficits, which are wartime deficits right now. And based on, I think it was the Kabisi letter put out, the implications of the U.S. debt service is a huge deal right now. You know, for nearly 20 years, costs were about 1.5%, which caused us to be complacent. Now they're closer to 5%. So 33 trillion of debt at 5% is nearly 1.7 trillion. So do we have the ability to just print these massive amounts of money as we have a recession and still be able to do it when we have that recession? You know, I think it's sooner rather than later. Then you've got a situation where when I started in the business, you know, you recommended 6 to 12 months worth of an emergency fund for the average individual. And I was shocked. In preparing for the presentation that we had at the Honey Manager event, I was doing some data research just to come up to speed. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a government agency that does a making ends meet study, the last one was in 2022. You know, they asked people, they said, okay, no, you know, how long can you cover your expenses? So this was the study they undertook, looking at a large selection of the population, but no longer was it just from your savings. Okay. So they put in a couple of categories. How long can you cover your expenses from your savings, selling assets, borrowing money, or going to friends and family? Now, of course, you were there, so you know the answer to the question, but 73% of the populace cannot cover their expenses for more than 6 months. Well, you go back to from 1854 to 2020, the average recession in the US was 17 months. There's a huge disconnect there. Now, they're shorter since 1945. So from 1945 to 2020, we're running 10 months now. But, you know, Chris, you know as well as I know, the markets in general go down during a recession, right? There's just less buyers. So if you have to sell assets to cover your expenses, you're going to sell them for a lot less than what they were going into that recession. You know, and if 7 out of 3 people are not prepared, you've only got 3 people that are going to be able to buy those toys that you all of a sudden realize you need to get rid of. So the average American has just, you know, come to the conclusion that Uncle Sam's going to bail them out. You know, it's okay. I'm going to live for today. I'm going to look great on Instagram and social media when I post how, you know, wealthy I am. I've got this brand new truck that I might can pay for, but I don't know enough about finances to realize I just can't afford it. There's a difference between what you can pay for and what you can afford.